Good evening.
Good evening. How are you, Damien?
I am doing well. How are you tonight, Christina?
I am great, and we have a new writer tonight. It's a little cold. I see you're also, I've got a sweater, you've got a jacket on. It's a little cold tonight. And then we had just gotten used to that warm weather, and here it is again, cold. So I know that you are going to introduce our writer tonight, so have at it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a little nippy here this morning as well. So tonight at WCONA Live, we have Megan Schreiber Carter. She's a third-generation native of Elk County, Pennsylvania. She's also a career writer, and she spent most of her professional life in Washington, D.C. Her clients include a national news wire service, the National Geographic Magazine, Discovery Networks, and Megan has taught as well at American University, George Washington University, and the University of the District of Columbia. She also used to be a teach for little people, she said, at the Calvert Home School when her child was in grade school, but now she spends much of her time in the Elk County home, where her family has owned for 90 of the 100 years it has stood. And for WCONA tonight, she's going to be reading a new short story called The Great Aunt Alice Collection, which is available electronically and in print and as a recording from major booksellers. Megan joins us from the same old Elk County house in which the story is set. So give a warm virtual welcome to Megan Schreiber Carter at WCONA Live.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Hello, Christine. It's nice to see you.
Good to see you too.
Thank you. Thank you. They say that the nicest thing you can do is just get right to it. Should I simply get right to it?
I think that's a great idea.
Okay, so I'll do. I considered pulling out a snippet or two from some scenes for tonight, and I read over them, but it simply wasn't working, and it made me feel cheap. So I thought instead, I'm going to read a couple of opening scenes. This is a short story. I've got a copy of it here. Let's see if I can get it on there. There we go. This is
very still. Oh, there we go.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you're back now. You were frozen. I thought you were playing freeze tag and someone got you, but you're live and moving again.
So this is a short story packed with stories that mature as the narrator matures. So when we start out, the narrator is relatively young, but the stories mature to the point where near the end, the last story that's told is a story about the potential benefits of having a friendship with the devil. So the Great Aunt Alice collection dives deep before it's done, and there's a lot of history in it. But with that, I'll just get started. Okay. Okay. So The Great Aunt Alice Collection, a memoir and mostly true stories. This is part of my series called Mostly True Stories. This is the first in the series. And I'm going to start with one section called The Attic. And there is a picture with it. So I'll see if I can get that. There you see those stairs, okay? That's the picture with this section. Don't go up in the attic. There are Indians in the attic. Dad told us this, and we believed him. Following any subtle creak from the third floor ceiling, my eyes grew wide with the proof that the savages were up there, just waiting to get at me. I was one of the third generation living in Mom's tall, old family house in a remote Pennsylvania mountain town. The town was well into its decline by the time I was born into the family in 1963. By then, our attic had been collecting abandoned keepsakes for about half a century. Eventually, I noticed that Dad came and went from the attic without being attacked. I made peace with the Indians, he told me. If I go up in the daytime, just me, long as I'm quick about it, they stay hidden. Once I was old enough to sneak up the stairs, but not tall enough to reach the light switch, I got my first peek at the spooky, shady place. I saw it through one eye, from around the corner, and just at the top of the landing. A thin path led the way past dark piles of odd shapes and boxes. I felt certain the sheet-covered shapes were Indians because they'd hide from you. I took off. In bed that night, I began feeling sorry for the Indians, up there in the dark with all that stuff and dust and having to hide and be so quiet. I wondered why they stayed, how they got there. So the next section is called the basement. I'll show you the picture of the rafters because it's kind of fun. But I'm not going to read you that today because we have a time limit. So I'm going to move right on to outside the house, which is a section that has a picture I'll show you now because it's more convenient. Sort of a lovely picture of the woods. If you can see it there, the snow in the woods, snowy like it is around here. So that section is called Outside the House. Dad wasn't the only adult telling kids tales. Take my girlfriend's father, nicknamed Buck. He and his family lived just a few houses from ours. Buck had a beer belly so firm and impressive that he could set his beer mug on it. Once, when I was eating watermelon with them in their backyard, I asked him why he didn't spit out the seeds. He said his belly was so big because he grew watermelons in there. He'd laughed, but I was worried about him. Then there was Grandpa LeGrand, next door. Actually, he wasn't our grandfather at all, just a warm, mischievous old man who looked like a skinny Colonel Sanders. I figured he wanted us to call him Grandpa because he was kind and he knew our grandpas were dead. He made beautiful things out of wood and baked great pies that he gave as gifts to his neighbors. To any passing kid, he might offer a hard candy from a beautiful cut glass bowl. Grandpa LeGrand said his long-living people simply couldn't die unless they'd reached their 90s. He also claimed that before people had personal cars, our town's trains had pulled passenger cars that carried people all the way to and from places like New York City. That just couldn't be true. All that came and went from town reliably were snow from Halloween to Mother's Day, and yes, the train, but pulling only miles of logs and other freight behind it as it clanked along, leaving the predictable number of whistle blows in its wake. Once out of town and off into the woods and mountains, those trains could be passing what the old hunters called the ghosts of the forest, 1,000-pound bull elk that they claimed could suddenly, silently appear next to you if you were still, turned your head, and looked for them. These few remaining elk were said to have descended from an extinct herd and to be living on in the deepest woods. I looked for the ghosts of the forest when we ice skated on the frog pond in the deep woods, but never saw them. Those will come alive in the spring when it thaws. Dad told us about the frogs, clearly frozen, mid-sprawl in the ice under our feet. Now, who could believe that? Those frogs were certainly dead. This frogtail was just like the yellow-brown salve Dad put on our cuts, Mrs. McKinley's bear salve. Really? From a bear? But Dad paid kids' objections to his statements no mind, called them complaints from the peanut gallery. Sometimes he called us a bunch of yardbirds, his reference to troublesome chickens people kept around their house. So that's that, and I'll say that it's only a 45-minute read or listen, and I hope that you'll give it a go and that you like it. And if so, please give it a nice review somewhere if you think there's somebody else who would enjoy it. And otherwise, I just want to say thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Great stuff.
So we're all back on again. And I really appreciate you coming on to read. I know Damien does. And thanks for introducing her, Damien.
Absolutely. And I'm going to look out for elk tonight.
Oh, my goodness. People talk about deer. Look out for the elk.
Very cool stories. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. And I look forward to tuning in next week and watching your reader next week.
Yeah, all right. Well, stay warm, everybody. See you next week.
Okay, who do we got coming next week, Christina?
I was afraid you'd ask me that. I don't have the list in front of me, but it's posted on the WCONA page.
All right. So you're going to find out who we got next week. We got 2 readers Monday and Thursday. So check out our WCONA Facebook page and you'll see who we've got.
Yep. And we're almost done with the schedule for May. So that's something to look forward to also.
All right. Have a great night, y'all.
All right. See you later. Thank you.
Bye-bye.